7:30.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting of the Denville Township Board of Education is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Daily Record and/or the Star Ledger of Morris County, has been delivered to the Township Clerk, and has been posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office and at each of the school buildings in the district. Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Here.
Mr. Cass,
Here.
Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Luer,
Here.
Mr. Kim, Mrs. Gould, Mrs. Wagner.
Here. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. No special presentations tonight, so superintendent's comments. Dr. Forte.
Not sure if everybody noticed, but I copied you in on I shared a document with you that I sent to the New Jersey Department of Ed for an explanation on how the ESSER funds were distributed. I also included in this new chart our entire comparative group. So it's the original 3 districts we talked about and then the entire comparative group. I did send it to some of our local people in the comp group and picked up another couple questions from other districts too that are interested in finding the answer too. So I'm waiting to hear back on a more thorough explanation of how they determine which district gets how much. And the 21-22 plans, as you noticed, I'm sure everybody's seen the news. Governor Murphy signed Executive Order 251, which deals with masking all students and staff in the buildings, regardless of vaccination status, starting the beginning of the school year. This executive order does not offer any type of an opt-out for the district. However, if there are any individual concerns related to the health of an individual student, parents should contact the principal, who will work with the school nurse and the child study team to determine some type of modifications or accommodations for the student who has some type of a documented issue that would not allow them to wear a mask in school. So again, the most important thing is masks will be required for all staff and students, and that's regardless of vaccination status, but it also, if there's any individuals, please contact your principal to work out any type of accommodations. As of our plan right now, any type of quarantining of students that happens due to outbreaks of COVID in the town would be dealt with through the home instruction model. So students who were told to quarantine for whatever reason they were exposed would not have a live streaming, but they would have a one-to-one or could be a small group with a home instruction tutor. If the entire class, like say in like one of the K-5 schools, an entire class had to be quarantined, then we would switch to a virtual medium, and the students would have instruction with their teacher if the teacher is available to do it, unless that teacher can't do it for any other types of reasons like sickness. Our projects are moving along. The Lakeview roof is moving along nicely. We're hoping for substantial completion in the next week or so. The Riverview HVAC, the contractors are working with JC&P&L, and Ms. Gorowski has a little update for you on that. The Valley View doors are continuing, hoping to complete all the classroom doors by September 1st. And it's been a project that's been going on for a few years. Once the project is done at Valley View, we'll move on to Riverview and then Lakeview. This is a project we've done inside. It worked out not just as a cost-saving measure, but it actually comes out better to actually take the doors we have that were strong, solid core doors and have our own. We have a couple guys in our district who are craftsmen and have the ability to refurbish them by taking off the veneer and replacing the veneer and then rehanging the door. And the doors look they look great. And it's about a third of the cost to do it as a replacement door, but we also get a better quality door when it's done. All classrooms in our district have air conditioning. Every classroom district-wide has air conditioning. That doesn't mean all large spaces yet. We're getting there, but for this year right now, all of our classrooms do have air conditioning. Back to school nights. Valley View is September 9th, Lakeview is September 14th, and Riverview is September 22nd. As of now, the plan is that we would have in-person back to school night. Obviously, that could change depending on guidelines from Department of Health or Department of Education, or if we do feel like it's not safe to do it. But as of right now, we're looking at doing it in person with some type of a recording as well for parents who might not want to come in person. It might be limited. It may have to be limited to one parent per student. We're still working out the details. But as of right now, that's what we're planning to do. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Dr. Forte. Assistant Superintendent's comments, Dr. Cullis.
I just want to thank all of the students and staff who participated in our summer program. It was our largest that we've ever hosted. We had over 320 students, and we utilized 11 buses to be able to provide transportation. We had a number of students in the afternoon, so they were there in the morning, and then also provided, took advantage of the afternoon enrichment as well. And we added the woodworking this year. We had a few different assemblies where the Rizzo's Wildlife, and we had the therapy dogs come, so it was just a very fun week, fun summer. Every week had a theme, and the students dressed up and the teachers dressed up, and I think it went very well. Right now, we're in the process of writing a grant to be able to continue this program for summer 22 and summer 23. So hopefully we'll know in December, whether or not we'll be able to do that. So we'll be able to inform parents that this program exists earlier than we were able to this year, because we were just informed 2 weeks before the program started. Start Strong assessments. So in lieu of the NJSLA assessments that usually take place in the spring, we had a waiver last year. In agreement, we would do the Start Strong assessments, which are a readiness assessment of the previous grade's content. And this will take place in 4th through 8th grade. And there's a window between September 15th and October 23rd. So for the math one, we'll just replace the readiness test that we give in-house, and we'll use the state required one. The ELA one would be new. This concludes the Assistant Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Cullis. Business Administrator's comments, Mrs. Gorowski.
I have a few comments. The New Jersey Department of Education has a revision on the safety water, drinking water for lead, effective July 1, 2021. And the regulation states that every district in the state of New Jersey must test for lead every 3 years. The Denville Board of Education tested for our district at the beginning of July. Out of the 31 water outlets tested, 4 of them came back with higher numbers than the required levels. We retested those 4 outlets, and 1 of them came back with a little higher than the required levels. At this time, today, we did implement a remediation plan for that 1 outlet. We put in a filter, and it's operational. And again, those levels sometimes we test during the summertime, but we have to also remember that those outlets has been shut almost the entire summer. They had not been utilized, so it has not been flush. So that could be one reason why the levels could have been a little elevated. The other comments that I have is an exciting comment, actually. It's a great comment. Last week, the state health insurance had a meeting, and they announced that calendar 2022 premium for health insurance will be decreased by about 1.7%. That is good news for next year. The other good news that they announced was that, and they call it holiday month for the month of February, they will give every district a break for the month of February where we would not have to pay premium for that 1 month. The staff as well would not have to contribute. That would be a nice savings for the district. So that was great, great news. Again, we do not know what the long-term effect is going to be. I'm sure they had a surplus last year due to COVID. A lot of people did not go to the doctors. They were healthier at home, and they probably did have a high surplus, which they are giving back by doing this reimbursement. But long-term effect, we don't know what's going to happen in 2023. And my last comment is the Riverview HVAC. As of today, JCP&L has contacted the contractor, Meridian Paving, and informed them that we would not need a transformer for that specific project. We would need to buy extra wiring, which will have probably another purchase order, like a change order. However, the cost will not increase because the reduction of the transformer will offset the wiring cost. So this means that we can proceed with the project. It will be hopefully done sooner than expected, and we will have a gym with AC in the near future. Thank you.
Great news, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we are going to open for public discussion. The purpose of bylaw 0167, public participation in board meetings, is to recognize the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters. In order to permit the fair and orderly expression of such comments, the participants must preface comments by an announcement of his/her name and place of residence. Statements made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration, and no participant may speak more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements, questions, or inquiries shall be directed to the board president. The time now is
7:42.
7:42. We are open for public comments. If you have a comment, please come forward, state your name and address as requested, and address the board. And just for the record, while we're waiting for you to come up, we do have our email open. If comments do come into that email that people have been directed to, Dr. Forte is monitoring that and will notify us. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. Marietta Cohen, Van Dorn Place. Here we are, just about a month away from the start of a new school year, but this is no normal school year. This school year, kids will be in school full day for 7 hours, masked. There has never been a setting, formal or informal, where kids are forced to wear a face covering for 7 hours. I have never worn a mask for 7 hours, and I never will. And before anyone jumps down my throat about doctors and nurses wearing masks in surgery or in hospital settings, they work in specially oxygenated rooms and have fresh air breaks at their convenience. I have let go of the fact that my 3 kids would have been in Lakeview together for this one school year. My husband and I will not be sending our kindergartner to Lakeview. Our kids have not worn a mask since 12:01 p.m. on June 22nd. Summer camp has been a dream. There is no science behind the mask mandates. Governor Murphy is facing several class action lawsuits for failing to provide proof that most children are a risk. I've always been a supporter of mask choice, and with the governor's latest announcement, I am saddened to be back in this position. Unfortunately, government officials refuse to do any studies weighing the benefits of mask wearing against the long-term harm. In an article published in the Washington Journal just yesterday, Dr. Makari from Johns Hopkins discussed the cons of prolonged mask wearing in children. One fact that stood out to me amongst many was that Dr. Makari found that of the $42 billion the National Institute of Health spent on research last year, less than 2% went to COVID clinical research. And here's the bomb. Not a single grant was dedicated to studying masks in children. Tonight you will have this article emailed to you. So where do we go from here? I go back to my first question from back in May to the district and the school. What measures do you have in place to assure children have adequate fresh air breaks? What accommodations are permitted for chronic mouth breathers like my son? Will teachers be trained to look for signs of oxygen deprivation, low oxygen levels, dizziness, anxiety? What are we doing? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members here tonight who wish to speak? Please come up and introduce yourselves and address the board.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name's Ginger Casella. I live on Highland Trail. I just had a few things that I wanted to bring up tonight. My daughters were born and raised in this town, and I had just moved over here from living in the Montclair area, so I knew nothing of Denville, and it's been an extreme blessing. It's a wonderful place to raise your kids, and they have loved going through the Denville School District. I think the pandemic caused so much tension with so many changes having to be made so fast. And I think you all did a wonderful job adapting very quickly, and we were already with the computers anyway to kind of like move into things. I know how difficult it is. I'm married to a teacher whose school district was not nearly as prepared, and it was very stressful for him. I wanted to just mention 3 items tonight. One is like the vaccinations. I heard over one of the meetings that vaccine clinics were considered on site, but now they won't be on site. Is there going to be notification, like, would there ever be one on site? Do they give vaccinations at school? To me, school is an educational institution, and medical decisions should be made at a medical institution. So I know that there's been laws passed, like in Washington, D.C., where 11-year-olds and up don't need parental consent anymore. I just kind of want to know, is there going to be notification well in advance of anything that's being pushed like that? Number 2, with the masks. I know they're meant to prevent bacteria being spread through droplets. I know there's been a study between wearing a mask and not wearing a mask, and there is a noticeable difference with coughing and sneezing, but not really any noticeable difference with talking and singing. I know that there was parents that sent 11 masks to a lab to be analyzed for 6 to 11-year-olds, that the masks were recently washed or laundered. They were worn one day to school, and they found that half of them had the bacteria that can lead to pneumonia, half had the bacteria that could lead to meningitis. There were pathogens that could lead to strep, tuberculosis, sepsis, and Lyme. Exhalation is one of our body's way of ridding the waste out of your body. You know, going to the bathroom, sweating, exhaling. So having masks on for 7 hours and all of those things potentially being there in that humid environment, to me seems to be definitely bad for their health. I understand that Murphy's order that just came out, you know, it says that you have to maintain a policy for mandatory face coverings, except under A, if it inhibits the child's health. So I kind of wanted to ask, isn't there any way, I mean, I'm going back to work soon in September, and when I'm sitting at my desk, I don't have to wear a mask while I'm sitting there doing work. If I'm walking around common areas, in the lunchroom, in the bathroom, yes. But is there been any talk or consideration of when they're sitting at their desks, they can take it off? Because they should be able to breathe in all day and keep their physical health.
Mrs. Casella,
Yes.
I'm sorry you've hit your 3-minute time limit. I
Oh.
apologize, but I need to ask you to wrap up.
Oh, yes, okay. The other thing is some of the things that are being added into the curriculum with the gender identity. You know, I've already heard a few cases already that this is leading girls that are like, you know, you're just trying to figure yourself out in middle school anyway. And now kids are going to get binding for their breasts. That your lymphatic drainage happens in the breast tissue. Like, there are certain things that I think are being added into the curriculum that are not going to be beneficial to the health of children. That's one of them. I understand teachers from both Valley View and Morris Knolls were surveying the kids in the classroom of if they were going to get the vaccination or not when it came out. And then my one daughter watched a movie that in her science class that was saying in the future, when babies are born, they're either going to be genetically modified to their DNA being perfect, or they would be naturally born. And the kids that were modified were going to be given more benefits throughout life than the ones that were naturally born. The New Jersey Constitution, Article 1, says that we shall not segregate due to people for their religious principles. And I feel like so many things are happening so fast that I feel like I want to opt my child out of so many different things. So I'll be obviously paying a lot more attention this year of what is being taught, what books are being offered, what movies are being offered, and asking what the opt-out possibilities are, or I will be looking to homeschool. There's too much that's happening.
Thank you.
Hello, Darren Raymond, Rock Edom Road. My son will be in first grade in Lakeview. I just had a couple questions about if there was to be a move to online or small group, I think as it was termed, due to a need for quarantine. Will those online sessions be full days, or are they broken out how they were last year, which seemed to be a modified day to me, and especially towards the end, it really turned into almost about 2 hours of in-person teaching. So that was the first question. And the second question, which I may have been answered already just by what's been talked about, is it the intention to be a full day in September, and will lunches be served at school? I think that was all I really had.
Thank you very much. We're going to take everybody's questions and then let the
Yep.
administration answer those they feel they can at this time.
Understood. Thank you.
Oh, no? Okay. Sorry. Donna Marie Szynski, 64 Pier Place. Laura, I have a question for you. You had read an email 2 meetings ago. You didn't give the person's name and address. I think it's this Mark Sheely, I think. Is that correct? Because we're supposed to, all public comments and emails are supposed to be with a person's name and address. So that was failed to be done. The person's not a doctor. I've been looking at all these doctors who have peer-reviewed studies. We'd like to see these peer-reviewed studies that you guys are using on masking, on all of it. There's lots of superintendents and boards that are actually going and suing the governor now. It is possible to get choice in schools. I'm all about choice. I'm a registered Democrat. I'm all about choice, okay? I'd like to see that choice be made for our children. I thank you, Dr. Forte, for responding to my email. My daughter, as everyone knows, has an IEP for dyslexia. There was no accommodations made, and I believe the mandate does require accommodations being made. Yes, you are making accommodations. I'm clearly putting that on record. But my daughter is really behind, and the way she was treated on that virtual program was god-awful. Okay, we weren't supposed to be in the room. My daughter would call me in the room. I saw some of the curriculum that was being sent out, the Scholastic, I believe I sent it. Anybody that wants to in the town, you can email me, dmski1973@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to send you the curriculum that they're showing our children in school. You know, these things aren't studied properly. Any vaccine needs to be studied for multiple years. Okay, there's not double-blind, there's nothing being done here that's scientific. These mass studies, I mean, like Ginger said, you know, parents are doing it because doctors aren't. You know, boards aren't. Okay, the health department isn't. I mean, all this money given for COVID funding, and these things aren't being done. I mean, I don't want my kid to get pandas because they were stuck in a mask for 7 hours. Okay? I know COVID's serious. I know it's a real illness. My dad had it when he died in Paramus, VA. Everybody knows his story. okay? I want to know what's being done. I want to know if you guys are going to stand up for the kids, because I think you represent every child, not just 90%, not just 99%, even that 1%, right? My daughter is so freaked out about going to school. It's not fair. She wants to be in school. She misses her friends. You know, I could sit here and read studies and send you guys all these studies, and because somebody was fired, you're not going to take it seriously. Maybe they were fired because they did the right thing. I've walked out of jobs because I was going to do the right thing no matter what it cost me. Okay, thank you. I know my time is up. Thank you very much for all you being here, but like, please take the kids seriously. There's kids that really can't handle this. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Forte, did you have any emails come in? No. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to address the board at this time?
So a couple questions that came through. The first one I'll address is the clinics for the vaccine. No, we're not going to do any vaccination clinics. We will not do them for students. We'd still do it every year for staff. It's just a convenience thing for the staff. We've built a relationship with Walgreens. They come and give us the flu shot, so we'll continue that. But we will not be offering any type of a clinic for any vaccines for students. The vaccine is available at several drugstores and supermarkets right in town, so we don't see that there's big need for that. There's no reason why people can't go to any of those locations. We will have mass breaks throughout the day, and that's going to depend on a lot of different things. What activities they're doing. In the executive order, which I have here, it does have some times where people can take off their masks. For example, anything rigorous, any type of rigorous activity. There is no provision for masks outdoors as of this time. And the other ones kind of make sense, right? If you're playing an instrument and if you're eating and drinking. So those are the kinds of things that they have already. And I think the most important thing that I stated before was that any individual cases will be handled individually. So if there's anybody who has some type of a documented medical reason that they cannot wear a mask, we will work with that. So please contact your principal, and they'll work with the CST and the nurses on that. I'm going to get back to Mrs. Cohen in a minute, just because I have to ask you a question, okay? Are you okay with me asking Mrs. Cohen? Mr. Raymond, I'm not 100% certain of what you're asking. I think you might have been asking something in response to what I said. So what I stated was, for example, let's just give you one example. It'll probably be the easiest way. Second grader at Lakeview in one of the classes has to be quarantined because the parent or somebody in the house is positive. It's going to be 7 to 10 days. So for those 7 to 10 days, they'll have a virtual, not with the regular teacher. It could be with the regular teacher, not necessarily. It'll be what's called home instruction. Kind of like if a student is, sometimes a kid breaks their leg or something, they can't come to school. It'll be that kind of thing. It'll be for short term, and all of the child's assignments will be posted on the teacher's Google Classroom too. So it'll be dealt with on a short-term basis that way. If it's the entire class, then the entire class will go virtual for the whole day. That's what it was. Was that what you were asking me?
Yeah, because it got a little muddled with at least my understanding of that. It's much clearer now.
You got to understand, like for me, it seems really makes sense because this is what I do all day. But I get it when I explain it to people. Sometimes I take that for granted. So I appreciate that.
If the case goes where the entire class has to be virtual, hypothetically, the teacher will be virtual with them for the entire day. It won't be a 2-hour period with breaks every 10 minutes, which it ended up being towards before they came back into school last year.
No, it would be a full day, but obviously, you know, if the reason why they're going to quarantine is because the teacher's now sick, it might be another teacher doing it, like a substitute, something like that.
But it will be someone instructing.
Yeah, it'll be somebody instructing them for the whole day. You know, it's tough to say that, right? I mean, if we run into where we have 10 teachers that have COVID and can't do it, and we don't have enough people, what we'll have to start working on is it might have to be a half day. You know, so in a normal circumstance where, you know, it's manageable, it's not like somehow or another we have all these people out and we can't manage it, you know, for a day until we get everything organized, we might have to make some exceptions like that. I think for the most part, what we would do is a full day with the teacher. In these times, it's hard to say a certainty about almost anything. So that's why I just want to clarify that. I think I answered everything you asked. Am I right, Mr. Raymond?
Yeah, and forgive my ignorance, but my son was in kindergarten last year, and we don't know what the normal hours are for Lakeview. What are they?
So my last community update, which came out Friday, had a link to this year's schedule and drop-off procedures and emergency procedures and all that. So go back and check it out. If you don't have the email, just go on the website where it says 21-22 plans. Click on that and it'll take you to it. Okay, so we had, thank you. Mrs. Cohen, you were asked two specific questions, I believe. One was, will they get fresh air breaks? Yes, they will. There will be breaks throughout the day. And will the teachers be trained in oxygen deprivation training? I will definitely bring that up with our head nurse to see what type of things are in there. But I feel strongly that the teachers did a good job, especially towards the end of the year, in allowing the kids have those breaks. Once the COVID numbers went down, like in the middle of it, yeah, we didn't make any exceptions. I know we were really hanging on by a thread. I mean, we had so many people out that I don't even mean students. We had so many staff out that were almost unmanageable. It was almost unmanageable. So we didn't make any exceptions. And it really wasn't just because of getting COVID, it was because of the quarantining. So one person had COVID, the kids didn't have a mask on, the whole room was quarantined, and we just lost our staff. So we didn't make any exceptions. As the year went on, and I know you should be able to attest this, it did loosen up a little bit towards the end. So that's the way I see it now, unless things really blow up and we have to do it. So I expect us to be able to do that. But I will talk to Ms. Seidel about some type of training for the teachers to identify when a student might be having an issue with the mask. Let's see, peer-reviewed studies, curriculum. Curriculum I'm going to hand over to Dr. Cullis. I know she likes to answer those questions, so I'll do that. And really want to stress the thing about the case-by-case basis. So right away, anybody, we're going to work with people on an individual basis to try to help them make it through. And our peer-reviewed studies, like I said before, we're relying on our medical professionals to guide us, and our medical professionals are trained in this. You know, we're not healthcare providers, but we have a group of professionals that do guide us. I would have no problem giving you the contact information of our people that we work with in the county and the state and the town, if you'd like.
Yeah, we can ask him for that, Dr. Fortney. I mean, it's not, you know.
I always put in all my documents the link to the health department website, so I'll do that again.
I don't know the specific guidance you're going with, because it doesn't sound like it's peer-reviewed study.
So the specific guidance, like we said, comes from them. So I will definitely share that with you. And now we're moving on to the curriculum.
Well, the one curriculum that was mentioned was about, when you said gender identity, I'm going to include that into our LGBTQ curriculum, which is now the materials mandated through New Jersey DOE. However, if you really look at what the standards are, it is all about inclusiveness and making sure that everybody in the entire school is welcome, no matter what situation and what experience they have in their homes and in their own person. So that is where we stand. Our K-8 district is really focused on inclusivity, no matter what, and that's what the curriculum says. I'm not sure what the high school is teaching, because you mentioned several things about what the high school is doing, but I can tell you that this summer we were infusing the LGBTQ standards into our curriculum, but again, it's all about inclusivity. It's through character ed, it is not through family life, because it's not about sexuality. We're not teaching sexuality, we're not teaching sex ed to the level that a high school would be. Really, our position is all about inclusivity and making sure that everybody in our school feels welcome and that bullying does not occur. This is the one group that receives more bullying than any other group that we see with HIB cases. So it's really important that everybody is respectful of everyone. So that's really the position that we take. We are going to be having a parent, we're working with Welcoming Schools, a 3-year initiative for our staff, and we're going to be having them come and working with a parent night, for a parent night, and you'll really get to hear all of what is exactly being taught in the schools. So when you see articles in the paper or news, it doesn't necessarily apply to Denville schools. So we hope that when we do announce that date, that everyone will come out and ask the questions that they have and hear what it is that is being taught. But it really is, it's just about being inclusive and being respectful of everyone. That's our position.
Okay, so we have a virtual email question from Andrea Zadelis of 3 King Hill Court. Good evening, Board of Education members, Superintendent Forte, Dr. Cullis. First, I'd like to say I appreciate the work you do. I'm a resident of Denville with 2 children in elementary school. They have stayed home the past year and benefited from being fully virtual. They will return to school this coming September. I've taken comfort in the fact that all students will be masked per state mandate. I, for one, appreciate that masks will be used in school as masks reduce the spread of COVID and other airborne diseases. My question is, will outside time be increased for all students? I feel like an added benefit of the need for fresh air would be outdoor instruction. Additionally, if I could submit a suggestion, we should increase the hours for mental health and social services for all students. This year has not been easy for any of us, and I think that it's an opportunity to change the way we view our education and standardization of education.
Do you want to address what I believe is the question is there going to be an increased outdoor time for the students? Is that the question that you heard in there?
I know that they're going to work on mass breaks throughout the day and getting the kids out as much as possible. We have tents, and we have extra staff. We've hired other people to try to spread the kids out as much and get them outside as much as possible. Now, obviously, we run into weeks where it rains or a day when it's 100 degrees out. We might not do it as much, or if it's later on in the year and it gets cold. So yes, everybody wants to get the children out as much as possible to give them fresh air. And the other part?
I was just going to mention, and I agree with you, I think that one interesting outcome of last year was really a revisit and time to reflect on a lot of our practices. And I feel like we are building in more and more of the character ed and mental health. And some of the things that we did this year, we're going to continue. I mean, even if there are no masks and everything is over, we're going to continue. I mean, things like the therapy dogs were fantastic addition to our schools. Bringing in the woodworking enrichment, bringing in different types of grouping of students where they had different opportunities to work with in smaller settings. I think all of those were experiences that were really beneficial that we may not have done if last year didn't happen. So certainly we did learn some practices. I mean, even things like coloring and scissor work, and increased some play in kindergarten. So some of those things are rolling back into the curriculum. that a decade ago were rolling out of the curriculum. So I think that, you know, there have been some positives from this year, and I know that those things we are going to continue. So I agree, this was a nice year to reflect.
Thank you to both of you for answering that question. Before we close public comment, I just want to address some of the things have been addressed before, but might not have been clear. So what we said before, and I believe it was the June meeting, you know, we addressed specific issues about questions of what guidelines we're following, and Dr. Forte addressed them tonight. And I prepared a statement, so I'm just going to go ahead and read that. We as a board, we're committed to overseeing this district that provides an excellent educational experience to all our students. Like you said, we are here to represent all the students. We're a volunteer board, and we don't have expertise in public health. Neither do our administrative team, as they have said and as we have said before. So we must rely on public health officials. So public health officials such as the New Jersey Department of Health or local departments of health, the county Department of Health, all of these bodies who are giving us the regulations and making recommendations based on CDC, American Academy of Pediatric recommendations. We're not reviewing peer studies. We are not evaluating them. We are not cross-referencing these things. We are listening to the experts in the field as required by law, as well as they are the experts. So if there comes a time when there is equal evidence presented to the board that it sounds like some members of the public are looking for us to challenge the laws that are currently in place. And what I can tell you is at this time, this board does not feel that that is an appropriate measure that we are willing to take. What we do want to do is focus on, like Dr. Cullis had talked about and was a focus last year, is of course the mental health and social emotional well-being of the students, dealing with not just masking issues in the school, but dealing with the pandemic as a whole and all the issues that come with that. So we are hopeful that while conforming with these rules and regulations and guidelines that we've been given and working within them, that the community will partner with us to do what's best for the students, keep everyone healthy, and help us pay special attention to those issues and bring them, be an advocate for your students, bring them to the staff's attention if they have issues, and please go through the right channels so that your student gets the help they need as quickly as possible. And as Dr. Forte has said this evening, if you feel like your child is in need of a mask accommodation, please contact your building principal and they will be able to best direct you on the next appropriate steps to take. Tonight's meeting, it's 8:13, we open public comment at 7:40. We've already talked about mostly masks for over 30 minutes, and while we want to hear the members of the public and their concerns all the time, we still have a tremendous amount of work to do this year and other issues that are pressing for the board. So if you don't have new information to bring to us, we ask that you allow us to do the work that needs to be done and move forward and work within the guidelines. And of course, understand that, like Dr. Forte said, they will be taking into consideration individual needs. You just have to contact the principals and go through the appropriate channels. I hope that I've answered some questions that maybe were left questioned. And with that, I'm going to leave it to any other board members to see if they have any comments that they'd like to make, and then we're going to finalize public comments. Okay, so it is 8:14. Yes, Demars? 8:14. And we are closed for public comment, and we are going to move on with the rest of our agenda. On to old business. Action to be taken. Mr. Capello, would you mind moving us through that?
I would be happy to. If there are no objections, I would like to move items A, B, and C. These are A, the reports from July 2021 of the Treasurer of School Monies and the Board Secretary. We also have, the education reports is B. C, we have the minutes from our work and regular session, executive session meeting of July 12th.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Capello. Thank you, Mr. Lure. Questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould, Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. On to new business, action to be taken. Under personnel, Mr. Anderson, would you move us through personnel, please?
Sure, if there are no objections, I'd like to move items, excuse me, 1 through 7 as a block, paying attention to the addendum, which includes A, OO through UU.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Capello. We have a long list of items here. Questions, comments?
I would like to congratulate Ms. Jacobus and Ms. Malini for moving across the guide this year. There's a lot of work they put into that, and it's definitely worthy of noting.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention, Mr. Lure. Congratulations to our teachers.
I would just like to quickly note a thank you to our administrative team. It's, as Mrs. Wagner just said, there's a plethora of staff movements. We typically do see a lot of movement in August. No surprise as we prepare for the school year, but as Dr. Forte mentioned a little bit ago, there's a lot of moving parts here and a lot of additional staff we're hiring. And in addition to the tremendous work that we continue to do with our curriculum and continue to try to develop our students, just with so many different changes, there's a lot going on, and I appreciate all the hard work throughout the summer to get everything set up as best as possible for our students. And I would like to wish a few of our staff members who have resigned to go on to either different opportunities or possibly moving on with something different in their life the best. I know one of them on here, Mrs. Granito, was a tremendous teacher for my kids at Lakeview, and I appreciate everything she did and certainly wish her well as the other staff members who are moving on to other career moves.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, and best wishes, of course, to all our staff members who are resigning.
And just one additional note, items 3 and 4 are the contracts, employment contracts, I should say, for Mrs. Gorowski and Dr. Cullis for the 2021-2022 school year. And I'm just excited to see them continue with the district and thank them for their continued service to the students of Denville.
Certainly, thanks for all of us. And I was going to make a remark, but I'll refrain. Thank you very much for continuing with us.
Laura, if you don't mind, I have one quick question. On the substitutes, I don't know if I ever noticed this before. I thought our standard rate was 90. I understand for nurses and other, it's more, but I'm just curious why some of the substitutes are 90 and some are 110.
The substitutes that are 90 have a substitute certificate. The substitutes that are 210 have a teacher's 110 or a teacher certificate. And then the other ones are the ones that go every day to the same school, the 210 ones, and they actually teach they could be assigned to
They're like a long term.
a longer term.
Right.
We have a hard time getting the subs, so we've hired due to COVID, we now have 2 of those in each building, which is really helping manage the ins and the outs of the staff during this health crisis.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould, Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. Okay, we are at instruction and programming. Mrs. Gould, would you move us through that, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Gould. Thank you, Mr. Cass. Questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould, Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. Mr. Cass, if you wouldn't mind filling in this evening for Mr. Kim and moving us through finance.
I'd be glad to. Five items to move for under finance. So we have the approval of checks for current expense, general organization, and elementary enrichment. We also have that the board accept the following items donated by the Mr. Cass and family. I won't read them, they're self-explanatory, but my son and my ex-wife are liquidating their cleaning supply business. After many, many years, the building's been sold, and they had a lot of inventory that they've sold at cost, given away, and everything. So I was there, filled up my truck with a lot of stuff, and brought it out here. I talked to the business administrator about if there was a need for that, the type of items that there were, and there was. So I took them to Riverview School to help them out. Item number 3 is that the board approve the agreement with Prime Healthcare Services St. Clair's LLC to provide 82.5 hours weekly of in-school clinical services district-wide for the 2021-2022 school year at a cost not to exceed $184,140, partially using ESSER funds, parens $19,340. Number 4 is to approve Dr. L. Haynes Associates to provide additional 10 hours of speech therapy services over the summer of 2021, not to exceed $750. And number 5, that the board approve the following students to attend programs in schools listed for the dates and tuition identified below. So you have students going to the Lake Drive School, the Summer Speech School, and the Commission for the Blind.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. Thank you, Mr. Lure, and thank you to Mr. Cass and family for your donation to Riverview. Other comments or questions?
I had a question on the Commission for the Blind. They had moved from we had I forget the exact name of it, but the Foundation for the Blind, I believe it is, that is relocated from Diamond Spring Road over to the Church of the Savior, where they're domiciled now. So this is not them. This is a different school and location outside of Denville. The Commission for the Blind.
Mr. Cass, this is a different institution that we use their service for the Commission of the Blinds.
This is for some students who have visual impairments.
Yeah.
And this is a group that helps us get the right services for the kids, not necessarily a location.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay. They find the appropriate vendor school that can take care of it.
It's more like
Okay.
they provide like a contracted employee. So we contract with them and they provide the staff.
So they may never leave the school, right? The contractor could come to the school or their house.
Yeah, it depends.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes?
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould, Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. And if I'm right, there's nothing to move under operations this evening. So we are at good of the cause. Committee reports, correspondence, and discussion items.
It is my understanding that we traditionally do not do a finance committee meeting in the month of August, so there will be no report for that.
Dr. Forte, can you just highlight for us again the back-to-school nights as you already had, and the first day of school? And then, Mr. Anderson, I'm going to ask you about the fundraiser for what I'm going to refer to as the foundation, which might have changed their name at this point.
First day of school is the 8th for students, the 1st and 2nd for teachers. Back to school nights are Valley View September 9th, Lakeview September 14th, and Riverview is September 22nd. This is also included in my community updates and the Friday folder. How is this for, back for some highlights? Discussion of Executive Order 251, I can elaborate a little bit on that. Back to school nights, dates, and the positive news that the mayor's had about our projects and the medical insurance.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to confirm the date. So the Denville Education Foundation, formerly known as the Foundation of Denville, they recently are kind of rebranding and changed their name. Same mission, same board, same organization, just kind of rebranding a little bit. They will be having their annual golf outing. It is their largest and only fundraiser of the year. As a reminder for everyone, the foundation raises funds and then provides those funds via grants to either teachers directly or to schools, depending to the individual school. That's for Lakeview, Riverview, and Valley View. Like I said, their single fundraiser is the golf outing. It is in October this year, which is a little bit later than normal. I believe it's October 12th. I'm just waiting to confirm the date, but I will get that out to everybody so Dr. Forte can get it in his in the newsletter also. And they are actively just beginning to solicit for sponsors, golfers. They've got I believe they've got a rain date on the calendar too here. Let me just see if I can verify the date. Give me 1 second.
And they're not going to do the tricky tray this year, is that right, Mike?
That is correct. The plan is not to do the tricky tray. However, they will have the dinner. They will have additional auction items. The date is Monday, October 18th. So Monday, October 18th, which is the week after our meeting, which is good because that's often a conflict for us. That will be the date of the golf outing. For anybody interested, they could check out the social media accounts for the Foundation of Denville, as well as their website, which is denvilleedu.org. That's their new website, denvilleedu.org. And once again, they will be having their outing on Monday, October 18th, as well as dinner afterwards. So you can either come for golf and dinner or just the dinner portion. And that will be just at Rockaway River Country Club right here in Denville. The 18th, sorry. Yep, the 18th, that is confirmed for, correct. Monday.
I had that in my calendar, the 18th.
Yep, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. We just like to highlight it because, as Mr. Anderson mentioned, it is their one and only fundraiser for the year. And even if you don't golf, you can come and participate in the dinner. It's always a good time, and it is obviously for a great cause. We are going to open our public comment section, our second public comment section at
8:30.
8:30. Are there any members present who would like to address the board?
There are no emails.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no comments from the public present and no emails, we are also going to close at, it's 8:31 on my clock now. And we do have a need for an executive session after, for the members of the public here and at home. We will be coming out of, but not having any votes after we reconvene in public session.
I would like to move to convene an executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss legal and personnel issues. Minutes of this session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? It is 8:31.